Oh, hi folks, good evening, hope you're well. This evening's video is a little bit of a contentious topic, really. I could probably get a lot of thumbs up or thumbs downs and comments, I hope. One can dream anyway. Um, but it's my personal view and one I hold dear to my heart, to be honest with you. Certainly for anyone who's been a victim of crime or been in a family that has been a victim of crime. So what I say here are my own views. Okay. And as I say, it is a contentious issue because some viewers might find it offensive in the respect that they have people in their lives who have been affected by such things. And what I want to talk about, of course, is crime and punishment. And very often should the punishment fit the crime. I can only talk about Great Britain, really. So obviously I want to talk about prisons, etc., and the criminals and the way we deal with such people in our society in Great Britain. The way America deal with their prisoners is one thing. They have the death sentence and we don't. Although in the UK, of course, we used to have it with Albert Pierpoint on the end, hanging people on the end of a rope. And Britain was quite brutal. I think it was 1962, maybe wrong about that, but pretty close, that they stopped hanging people in this country, Great Britain. A very sad day for us all, I think, because I'm a firm believer in capital punishment, because people who kill people shouldn't enjoy a life themselves. And if they do enjoy their life themselves, they certainly shouldn't be enjoying it because they've deprived somebody of a loved one somewhere, or a mother of a child and a father of a son or a daughter, or brother and sister. So it is a contentious issue. Third time I've said the word contentious. But there's no other word for it, quite frankly, because we live now in the United Kingdom in such a liberal, it makes me physically sick that we actually live in such a liberal society in many respects. And we're all supposed to be stiff upper lip and, turn the other cheek. Well, that's utter bullshit. People who say turn the other cheek to crime, if it affects you or personally or whatever, forget it. No, I don't. I am unforgiving in that respect. And my brother was, quite frankly, had his life cut short by a lunatic wielding a knife, and premeditated as far as I'm concerned, and she got away with it, quite frankly, after a very short spell in prison, and unprovoked, I might add. So I think the British legal system stinks, quite frankly. It's a mamby-pamby, I think. So I also believe that white-collar crime, that means crime not involving or hurting or killing other people, that those who perpetrate white-collar crime, business crime, finance, fraud, you name it, that should not involve a custodial sentence. Custodial means that you're deprived of your liberty by you being locked up in a prison. I think white-collar crime in this country accounts for a considerable amount of prisoners in our country, clogging up our prison system, when quite frankly, just because a man is a tax evader or a crook, financial crook of any way, or a woman, I see no reason to lock them up, because that just serves no purpose. I think inconveniencing those types of people is far better. And the way to inconvenience white-collar criminals is to put a tag on them around their ankle and maybe make them wear some form of armband to say to the rest of society that they are actually out and about. beware. Yes, short of putting an X on their forehead. People who are rapists should certainly serve custodial sentences without a doubt, and they should also have to undergo a tattoo on their foreheads that say rapist or caution. You wouldn't have to be so graphic, would you, with it? Murderer, well, the murderers wouldn't be out. So the people really that truly should be incarcerated out of the way and lose their liberties are people who hurt or kill or literally terrorize people in general public. But you get these arguments from the mamby-pambies, the civil rights lot, about liberty. Well, I'm sorry, and I don't think you should have any rights. If you kill someone or terrorize someone or in any way you hurt someone, you should lose your rights, your human and civil rights. Because my opinion about such people is they shouldn't exist in society. And my treatment and punishment would certainly reflect that opinion. There is no way that anybody in my world, having deliberately killed a child or a woman or another man, will ever walk free again. Life would mean life, and it truly would. If it was not manslaughter is a different game. Manslaughter is death by accident or carelessness. Maybe, just maybe, they would see the light at the end of the tunnel and be released eventually after a considerable prison sentence for their dereliction of duty. Oh, if only. But certainly people, as I said, who are crooks, you know, the rogues, they should not be locked up. We talk about an overcrowded prison system in the country. Well, we could relieve that quite considerably by releasing people who haven't killed or hurt men, women or children. Because they're the only bastards, the ones that kill men, women and children, that should be in prison for life. And life should mean for life. They should be put in prison and treated in a way which I'll talk about, for life, and they should die in prison. That's my opinion. But if you look at the prison services now, overstretched, undermanned, but prisoners have rights. Well, in my world, they don't. They lost those rights the moment they committed the crime of murder or rape or violence towards others. You lose them. They've gone, because only human beings can have rights. And as far as I'm concerned, if you kill deliberately, i.e. you plan it, or you rape, or you murder men, women or children of humans, you will be taken out of human society and put in a cage. One step away from being shown to the general public. This is how to solve the crisis of overcrowded prisons. Release white-collar crime, tag them and send them on their way, and they will be accountable. Those that are left then in prison would be walking around knowing that there's no light at the end of the tunnel. I'm not interested in rehabilitating these people because they plan to murder somebody and have done. They plan to hurt somebody badly and have done. And there's no forgiveness. You beat the living daylights out of somebody, okay, with malicious intent, you are going away for a long time. And you'll only be released, if at all, by the time you are quite incapable of raising your hand to another human. So it's possibly a bit more lenient on people, but depending on the severity, but if you deprive of a human of another human of their life, you won't have yours. It's an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth in my world. But if you look at the prisoner, typically one now that'll go out and create havoc and maybe cause the death of many, or death of one, or they terrorize and certainly damage another human being to the extent of grievous bodily harm, and you get caught, kiss your life goodbye, my old son. Or some women are quite well capable of killing as well. You deprive someone of their life, you will be deprived of yours. It's very straightforward, an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. Is it Victorian? But we have relented, haven't we? We've become real soft touch in this country because we stopped hanging people. We stopped shooting them with a firing squad. That was often the choice. We didn't do the electric chair. Well, you would say that's subhuman. Well, look at the perpetrators of subhuman crime, and then you fight fire with fire. They only stand one thing. They understand one thing. And that is, do unto others as you do unto yourself, or have done to yourself as you do unto others. But if you look at the typical yob now, that is a repeat offender of similar things, okay, and they go for a 20-year stretch, well, it's okay, because there's many people in our society, they're quite law-abiding, and they're sleeping at -2, -4, -6 temperatures out there in the winter. They are homeless, sleeping in the streets on cardboard boxes or in ditches, wherever they can find rest. And they are freezing and hungry, dirty, rejected by society very often. And these are just the homeless people who've done no wrong to anyone. They've just lost their job and maybe lost their way. But they haven't gone out and hurt anybody. Yes, they might have a drug dependency because it's the only way they can get through the day. And they walk around with their begging tins and do whatever they need to do to survive. But they're not criminals, folks. Homeless people are not criminals. A lot of people are forced to live in their cars, for goodness sake, or in shop doorways to shy away from the cold and survive. But they don't become criminal. Some do. Well, think about this. Some will, because they know if by walking along and smashing a few bricks and get put in prison or even a police cell, at least it's warm and they get fed and they get dental care and they get health care if they're poorly, even in a police cell. It beats sleeping in the streets. And this is exactly what happens to when somebody beats another human being senseless to the point of near death or even death. They'll go to a prison where they have rights, you know. You can't do that, I know my rights. Well, that wouldn't come out of a prisoner of mine's mouth. The first thing the gobshite would do, if he is a gobshite and can't control himself, is some of my big beefy prison guards will take him round the back, strip him off and stick him in a cage and hose him with a fire hose in the garden, naked, until he shuts his mouth and learns a bit of respect. And only then, with caution, would he be allowed to be back indoors. Oh, I could think of so many ways that these people need changing. They need to be reprogrammed. You see, what they do in the military is that they get Joe Soap from the public, who's learnt silly little ways in life, okay, and they strip them of their personality. They start again. It's like wiping a cassette tape clean of the previous music because it was gone corrupt, and then recording a new song. And you have to do this. But there's crims of today, often overcrowded cells. Oh, what a shame. Overcrowded cells. Well, there's a pity. I'm so sorry we haven't got one man per room, because there's so many of these arseholes. Well, they would all be, if I had my way, in isolation, single cell, 20 minutes of exercise in the morning, 20 in the evening, and they would have their meals brought to them and shoved through the door. They would have an internal toilet in their cell, and they would be like the Birdman of Alcatraz in splendid isolation for 15, 20, 25 years and more. But if they've killed or raped or murdered another human being, they can forget ever coming out. As for the death sentence, bring it back. Absolutely bring it back. And the arguments of the pufters out there would say, the death sentence, well, it never really stopped anyone else killing anyone, so it certainly deterred a lot of people from going the extra mile and killing someone. It was a very good deterrent, actually, because without it, you've given these crims a clean bill of health. You can basically give them license. But they got this pathetic law called manslaughter. And there's a very fine line between manslaughter and murder. Both end in the result of a dead person. But then you get the lawyers fighting over scraps, the defence lawyer and the prosecution lawyer. How can you possibly defend a man for knocking the crap out of murdering someone or premeditating someone's demise, male, female or child? And the same with paedophiles. They would not see the light of day. And there's not don't give me this, it's a medical condition, paedophilia. Well, we know the rate of paedophilia in the UK in the upper crust of our society, and that in itself, people like Jimmy Savile would be put in prison for the rest of his natural life, unnatural that it was. But then you'd have to put away half of the BBC and half the politicians in this country, because majority of them have paedophilic interests. It's the way they roll. It's a big club, and I hope you're not in it, as I'm not. But if you break the law now to such an extent you go to prison, it's kushti. You could be as broke as a church mouse. You could go in there, get 3 square meals a day, get your clothes done, get your laundry done, get educated. Oh yes, you go on courses and you can get educated, you know. Even if you murder somebody, you can go in and get educated. You can go and do degree after degree after degree. Amazing books. No student fees, no gas bill, no electric bill, no phone bill, nothing. Oh no. And you're treated with kid gloves. And yes, you can play cards with your mates and you can have your fags and your booze. So there's no booze unless you make it yourself or it gets smuggled in by the prison guards. See? But one of the cruelest things you can do to a human being is deprive them of their liberty. Oh, is that what all the liberals say? Oh, yes. Well, what about being deprived of your life? See, I'd like to get hold of these civil rights people who defend prisoners who have done violence and perpetrated violence and maybe death on others, and say, listen, you, come here. There's your young wife over there and your 2 children. Watch what he's going to do to them. And make him watch. And make him watch. And then say, how do you feel about that? Are you now willing to let the perpetrator, you're going to have sympathy and empathy with the perpetrator then and let him live a nice ripe life? What do you want to do? I want to kill him. He's killed my wife. He's killed my kids. You can see it. You see? Until it actually affects the person making these laws and decisions will never get true justice. And this is why you should have an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. Because prison in the UK, despite being overcrowded, despite being violent on occasions, only because we have incompetent ways of managing people. But you rape someone, you're leaving. If you do, even now, we release rapists, or they go on probation, putting the fear of God into the victims that they currently go out there and have stalked in the past and are worried about getting stalked again. But I think that if you commit a crime like rape or child sexual abuse, it should be tattooed on your foreheads. Compulsory. And you'll walk around society for the rest of your life with everybody knowing you're a rapist or child molester, pervert. Oh, how quick you'd find these baseball caps pulled right down the front. Anybody in a baseball cap would be suspect. And it would be technically illegal to do a skin graft removing such. You wouldn't just put it on the forehead, rapist, child sex abuser, murderer, thief. You'd tattoo at various parts of their body. That's if they got released in my world. Because imagine, you see, I don't want any excuses of I was drunk when I did it and she was gagging for it. Me and my mates took turns. Well, you and your mates are going to get tattoos on your forehead. That's after you've served 15 to 20 years of your life in prison, in one cell, not mixed with your buddies. You will be in isolation and you'll have 40 minutes of exercise a day where you'll be alone and you can walk around in little circles and stretch your legs, okay? And there won't be any further education facilities for you. You'll get back in your cell and you'll reflect on what you've done. But the problem is we have these human rights wankers, sorry to use the phrase. But these human rights people have never had anything done to their family. Because if they did, they'd sing a different song. Oh, for sure they would. These people who make the laws are a joke. I think if you break the law to the extent of killing or raping or abusing children and adults, you're going away and you'll be deprived of your liberty. But it's not the... Look at the bright side for the prisoners. They get 3 square meals a day. They get cosy and warm at night. They get dental treatment if their teethies hurt. They get medical treatment if their little leggies back aches. They get their hair cut. They get hot running water and nice drinking water in great conditions. Better than conditions of the corpses they've left behind them. Somebody's loved ones. So you tell me that we live in a decent, just, legal system. No, we don't. It's heavily geared towards protecting the prisoners, because it seems in our society prisoners seem to have more rights than the victims. The victims have to live every day with the consequence of fear, because maybe that bastard who did this is going to be out soon and he's looking for revenge. Maybe they can't sleep, they're having nightmares, their whole life has been wrecked. And they still have to go to work, they still have to pay their gas and electric and phone and survive in this society. But somebody who rapes or murders somebody can go into prison and just switch off and chill out. Not in my world, they don't. They kill someone or molest a child. They're hanging on a rope or sitting in a chair, or they get a lethal injection. Take your pick. Because I don't want to have to pay for the existence of these bastards, and I don't want to breathe the same air as these bastards. I can forgive the guys who do the white-collar crime because, hey-ho, bankers are fair game if there's been a rip-off. White-collar crime should not attract a prison sentence. We have the technology now to microchip people very easily. You can either go to prison or we can stick a microchip in your neck and you'll basically be tracked 24/7. We'll know precisely where you are. We'll know everything about you. It's that or prison. What do you like? Oh, I want to get out. Of course they will. But the only people remaining in my prisons will be the rapists, the murderers, the child sex abusers, these type of people. And they don't have any human rights because they're subhuman. I don't care why they killed somebody. And if you kill somebody by accident, well, you better have a bloody good lawyer to prove the case, because that's not technically murder, which is planned. It'll become manslaughter. That'd be a lesser charge. But beating the crap out of your wife or girlfriend or boyfriend to the edge of their life and making them disabled or disfiguring them or giving any permanent damage, you'll be classed as a murderer. If somebody loses their life, I don't care if you want to call it manslaughter or not, you should certainly be deprived of your liberty. The only people in prisons should be the murderers and the rapists and those who have deprived others of a life or wrecked and destroyed the survivors that they leave in their wake of horror and terror. Because unless we sort this out, folks, we're going to have to build bigger prisons as our laws get softer and softer on these bastards. The ones that go around spending their life terrorizing and bullying and raping and molesting and beating up, causing havoc in our country. I would personally put them in prison after they have been subject to being birched, stripped naked, strung between two telegraph poles, bang in the centre of Trafalgar Square or a town centre of your choice where they perpetrated the crime and publicly whipped. They used to call it birching. They're one step of going into stocks in my world, where people could throw things at them. Because you become subhuman, we're going to treat you subhuman. That's my rant for the day. I'd value your opinion, but it has certainly dropped the prison population quite considerably. And if the death penalty is awarded, no appeals, the death would be carried out within a week by law. No appeals, no lawyers getting wealthy on appeal after appeal, no sitting on death row for 15 to 20 years when your victims are already rotting in their graves. You will follow them swiftly. Believe me. I cannot believe what happens in America where they put people on death row for years. No, they would be out within the month, flat out and buried. What do you think about that then, folks? I value your opinion. Catch you tomorrow.